Hey guys, it's Katie at scrappinkaty.ctmh.com, and today marks week 8 of the She's Crafty mini paper pad class, where we take a mini paper pad from our stash and try to use as much as we can over a 10-week period. Here is a look at the sketch and then the photos that I'll be using, as well as the paper pad that I've pulled out. Now, I haven't actually pulled the pieces out yet, but I will do that here in a second. And then I do have a 12 by 12 sheet of pattern paper from Close to My Heart from The World Is Yours. Now, all the embellishments I have put in these little trays to kind of make it a little bit easier for me to thumb through and figure out which ones I want to use. So for my base page, I wanted to use just plain paint and glitter, much like you would gesso or something like that. So I'm just spreading it on pretty clear and then just going to sprinkle glitter all over my paper. Now, if you've ever heard of if Katie's in a room using glitter and nobody else is, how many people end up using glitter? Yeah, that's probably what this project is. I have glitter everywhere, but it's okay. I really like the end result of this layout. Now, all I did there was attach that pattern piece to a white daisy cardstock base just to cut down a little bit on the curling of the paper. I usually do that if I use any mixed media. So you can see that I've already pulled those pieces of pattern paper, and then I'm just going to start separating them into piles, because on this sketch you definitely have a bottom portion and then a kind of midsection portion of pattern paper. So I'm just cutting those to the, I guess, dimensions that I think they are, and then just separating those into the what will be at the bottom of the layout and what will be on the kind of middle to upper middle section. So you can see here that I've just kind of stripped those out. Now I will leave my measurements down below just in case you want to recreate your own and you don't want to guess at what those measurements are. And then I'm also going to use toffee ink and a mini blending tool just to sponge all the edges of this pattern paper. I love the look. I thought that this mini paper pad, even though it didn't really come with any distressing, it just kind of looks vintagey. And so I love that that ink, that toffee ink, kind of adds an extra level of vintage feel to those pattern papers. So I'm going to leave those out on my paper or on my base page just until I'm sure where I want them to go. And then you'll see me just kind of reach back for that blending tool to sponge as I go. Now, usually if I'm doing any workshops or anything like that, we usually try to do all the ink distressing at once so I can get that ink pad off of my table, because I am infamous for either flipping that over onto my project or laying something on that ink pad that really doesn't need to be laid down. It's usually just a huge mess. But on this layout, I do kind of try to keep it clean. So I'm going to start just adhering down, and I'm going to start with the bottom. Now, these two pieces, because they're 6 by 6 paper pads, I needed it to go a 9 inches on the bottom of my base page. And so you'll see a seam there. I end up messing with it and fooling with it on and off during this video, but then I end up finding the perfect solution for that. So make sure you stick around so you can see that. So I'm going to pull out my Versamat to adhere this middle section of pattern paper down, just so I can make sure they're straight. And that lets me line them up on the left side and the right. And then I realized that I've lined them up just a little bit too low. So I'm going to end up lining the bottom edge of those pattern papers at 5 1/4. And that will allow my photo to kind of stand out on that bottom section of this sketch. So here I'm just applying adhesive. Now some of these will go over the side, but I'm just going to turn my layout over and cut those down. Now the photos that I'm scrapbooking, those are from my son's 21st birthday. He does not live here, and so his girlfriend, her mother, also happens to be a scrapbooker, which is always a plus because his girlfriend is conditioned to taking photos and sending them to me, which I am so thankful for. And so she sent me these photos. He is a New Year's baby, and so there's always a party going around or going on around his birthday. So they got dressed up super fancy, went to a party, and then, of course, she sent me the photos, and I'm just now getting around to scrapbooking them. So I did end up switching the placement of the photos, put the square one at the top and then that 3x4 at the bottom. I felt like it left me a little bit more room at the bottom and gave me more space in between the bottom section of the sketch and then that mid to upper mid section. So right here, I'm just pulling out all the embellishments. Now I definitely want to stick to florals and hearts, love, things like that. I am going to pull in 21 from my embellishments just to kind of document what these photos were from. And you can see that I did that off camera. I didn't want you guys to it really took me a while to pick which embellishment, so I didn't want you to suffer through that. Now, this one piece of paper that I have, it did not go to this particular mini paper pad, but I loved these little fleur-de-lis or whatever they are that were on this kind of old book style, newspaper style. So I immediately knew that I would be fussy cutting those out. And so I'm just doing that here now, leaving a little bit of an edge around those. And then I'm going to put one up at the top and then one down at the bottom like you see here. And those pretty much stay exactly where I've laid them down. Now, these chipboard frames, I love them because they are pink. Now, these pinks don't match my base page at all, but I think that they're a wonderful complement to that base page. That base page is a smoothie ink or a smoothie color, and these light pinks just go really, really well. So of course I've cut those in half because I've already added 3D foam sheets to the back of my photos. And so my photos just wouldn't really lay right if I were to use all of it. And like a true scrapbooker, I cut them in half so I can use the other halves on another project. We always do that, and that's always a plus for me. So I'm basically pretty happy with all the embellishment groupings aside from, I'll kind of mess with the title and that 21 a little bit. But other than that, I am just going to just run through these embellishments right quick and adhere them all down with a combination of foam, liquid adhesive, and then my tape adhesive as well. Now, I am going to speed this up quite a bit because it's really just me checking out the embellishments and putting them down. Now, I will tell you something that I like to do that I think is very pleasing to the eye is anytime I have multiple clusters of embellishments, I always try to include the same elements in the embellishment. So you saw that little wreath thing that I cut apart. I included one down at the bottom cluster and then one up at the top. Also with the chipboard frames, with hearts, anything like that, if you include an embellishment in each cluster that matches the other cluster, then it seems like the two clusters are more cohesive, if that makes sense. So right here, I'm just trying to space out some of the red elements. Now I have that little frame that had the black heart, but I end up replacing that black heart with a red heart. And then for my title, I am just going to do that 21 on that little gold foil heart down at the bottom left. Now I may end up cutting a scripty 21 on my Cricut and adding it later, but for right now, that pretty much is going to be my title. And then I'm going to put journaling up at the top right, probably over that paint and that glitter. So we are just finishing up. Like I said, I'm going to add that red heart right there. And then I've got a triangle of those reds, as well as go ahead and get my 21 glued down. Now, the thing about vellum, I just added adhesive behind the 2-1, and you can never see the adhesive behind that vellum. So here is a look at the finished layout overall. I just love how the glitter background matches my my son's girlfriend's dress. It's all glittery and shiny. And I'm just loving the sketch that Shannon chose for this week's She's Crafty mini paper pad class. Now, don't forget that there are other people participating and they'll take their own look at that sketch and create something. So I'll leave all those links down below. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching.